everyone, Ace here, he, she, back at you with another Podfic. Today we're doing Someone Like You by Sparky Pasker. Again, sorry if I'm butchering names, I'm bad at this. Bad at giving names? Saying names? I don't know. Anywho, we're doing chapter 14 of Someone Like You. So on with the chapter. Zuko walked through the back door of the cafe. Boss was in the process of putting a tray of scones in the oven. "Hey, Midoriya," she called, wiping her hands on her apron. "Here are your appointments for today," she said. She handed Zuko a slip of paper. He looked at it and sighed. It was going to be a rough day. With the Jiro gone, it would be just him and Boss. She was going to have to get the new hires in sooner rather than later at this rate. He noticed Boss was scheduling more and more people every day. He wasn't going to be able to do both his job as an analyst and a barista if this continued. Truth be told, the analyst's job was paying a lot more than the barista one, so he wouldn't be opposed to doing only that. Jiro had asked him once about how that was working. He was getting paid hourly for just being in the building, and the analyst fee on top of that? The answer was no. During the time Izuku was an analyst, he was paid 50% of whatever the fee was for the analyzation was, and that was it. He was only paid his hourly wage for the few minutes between appointments. Boss loved this because she didn't actually have to pay Izuku at all if she scheduled him for appointments all day. The clients paid his wages. Izuku wasn't really complaining because he is making more than he would with his hourly wage alone. Boss still hadn't gone back on her word of paying him 50% of the fee, although Izuku has a feeling he knows why. Once she hired him, she had to keep her promises in order for her business to stay open. She probably thinks Izuku would tell everyone that he's quirkless and get her shut down. But she doesn't need to know he wouldn't do that. At this time, they were using each other and were happy with the agreement. As long as it stayed that way, Izuku had no reason to say anything against what she was doing. Boss glanced at Izuku's feet from the corner of her eyes. "New shoes?" she asked, eyebrows raised. Yeah," Izuku said hesitantly. He knows what she's thinking. There's only one brand of shoes that fit quirkless feet, because of the extra toe joint, and the shoes were only available in red. And Izuku wasn't walking as if his feet were in pain. So she was wondering where exactly he got them. But one thing Izuku had learned about Boss in the year he had been working there is that she doesn't really care. Sure, she was curious. After all, who wouldn't be? But as long as it didn't prevent her from making money, she didn't care. "Good. You can start delivering orders in between appointments," she said, turning back around and began to make a new batch of tarts. "Good timing, too. We have a new worker starting today. Show her around. She can work on getting to know the machines and you take the orders. I'll be up to check in on you between bakes." Izuku gave the affirmative and donned his apron. He walked to the front of the store and found a young girl, about his age, with a brown bob of hair and pink cheeks, standing nervously at the cash register. The doors haven't opened yet, so Izuku still had time to show her how everything worked, and to get the coffee brewing before people start showing up. Hello! Izuku called to her. The girl jumped in her spot and swung around. Hello, she yelled. She nervously yelled. Izuku giggled to himself. She was kind of cute, like a puppy. Hello, he said again calmly. I'm Midoriya Izuku. He held out his hand. Uraraka Ichako, she responded, grabbing Izuku's hand with her own. Pinky up. Izuku kept that in mind for training. I'll show you how to work the machines, he said, turning around and motioned for Uraraka to follow. For the next few minutes, Izuku showed Uraraka how to measure and grind the coffee beans, how to fill and pack the espresso machine to the perfect shot, to make the perfect shot of espresso, and how to brew the cafe's neighborhood's famous coffee. Izuku may not necessarily like Boss, but she only buys quality product. It only took about an hour for the cafe to fill up. Uraraka was taking orders and making coffee, while Izuku worked the register and took orders to the table for those who opted to sit and enjoy their morning. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen your bottom half before. A regular customer laughed. Takahashi was one of the first people who had ever purchased Izuku's analysis. He was completely surprised when he correctly guessed that he had the ability to grow nails out of the tips of his fingers. Most people wouldn't have been able to see the faint holes at the tips of his fingers, but Izuku did. Takahashi had gotten a permit to use his quirk when he was young and used it to build himself a successful construction business. His son owned it now, using a very similar quirk, as is common in families. Izuku laughed along with the customers. Yeah, now that Juro is gone, I have to pick up a little more of the slack. But don't worry, once Uraraka is up to snuff, I will be back behind that counter. The customers nearby laughed enthusiastically. Oh yeah, one of them exclaimed. She got into UA, right? Izuku nodded. That's right. So where are you going to school? Another asked. Well, Izuku couldn't very well tell them it was online school for the quirkless based out in the US. I'll not be attending high school, he told them instead. What? Why not? They asked. Well, not to sound sorry for myself or anything, but my dad left my mom and I a long time ago. Like when I was a baby. Ever since then, my mother has raised me by herself. She would love for me to go to high school, but I really need to work to help her with our expenses. Izuku felt like vomiting. He can't believe he had to play into Inko's fake caring mother routine. And he loathed to admit it came in handy. Oh, well, that's too bad, Takahashi said. That's right. Once finances are mentioned, all conversation down that road are stopped in their tracks. What a waste of such a powerful analysis quirk. Izuku fought not to freeze. It's okay, he said. I might just be able to help the police one day, even without a high school degree. With a quirk like that, there is no doubt. The customers gave him a wide smile and a wave as he walked back behind the counter. He fought to make sure his smile wouldn't change in how bright it was. He had to make them believe he was happy with them, assuming he had a powerful mental quirk rather than just being a smart, quirkless person. Izuku walked over to a cupboard and pulled out a fresh notebook. After talking to Boss, he was able to negotiate to have a small portion of her 50% cut to use to purchase notebooks for Izuku. Of course, Izuku had to find some that were less than 100 yen each. But that wasn't too horribly difficult as long as he was willing to skimp a little on quality and buy it in bulk on the internet. But the quality really didn't matter to him. And if given enough time, Izuku could fill up an entire notebook with information about one client. So buying in bulk was actually preferred. He actually surprised a couple of clients with that. Even those who seemingly had the most simple quirk got a full notebook, but no quirk was actually simple. They affected the personality, confidence, and future prospects of everyone who had them. Of course, the clients didn't get the original notebook, no. Izuku took those home, updated the information into a coded system for his own design, and then burned the notebook. He couldn't trust anyone else with the information. People dropped things all the time, and sometimes Izuku couldn't help himself with what he writes. There were many times where he found himself writing down how to kill someone with their own quirk. He never included that information when someone came back for more detailed analysis. If anyone found out he knew how to do that, he could possibly be treated as a villain. He would lose his job, the cafe would probably be closed, and he would not be surprised if he was arrested on suspect of premeditating murder. At least once he had his crime fighter's license, he could say that he was keeping a database of random quirks in order to study how to beat them if he came across a villain with a similar quirk. Not only that, but because he fills out a notebook and uploads it to his computer, when someone eventually comes back, all he has to do is print out the information they want. It gave the clients results in a faster period of time and allows Boss to book more appointments. Out of the corner of his eye, Izuku noticed a man in a dark hoodie pulled low over his head come through the door. The man walked straight to Izuku and took a seat in a chair across the counter. Boss had gotten annoyed at the clients standing around wherever they wanted while they were waiting to talk to Izuku. So the counter had a sign that said analysis on it. There was one chair in the corner that was labeled that way and a table with a matching sign for when Izuku's clients showed up early. It wasn't exactly rocket science to figure out where people needed to go. Therefore, it was likely this was Izuku's first appointment of the day. "Hello. Are you here for an appointment?" Izuku asked. "What does it look like?" a gravelly voice answered. Well, that wasn't very polite. "Can I get a name?" Izuku wanted to make sure this was actually the person he was supposed to be seeing. He didn't accept walk-ins, and it wouldn't be the first time someone had pretended to have an appointment. but really didn't. A growl came from underneath the hood. Shigaraki Tomura. The man lifted his head. Izuku finally got a good look at his client. He had pale blue hair and deep red eyes. His skin looked dried out. He knew that it was the end of winter, but even that level of dryness was unusual. "What level of detail are you looking for today?" Izuku asked, ignoring the unfriendliness. He had worked with the public long enough to be able to ignore most any attitude. People in general weren't very friendly before they got their coffee. Shigaraki took his hands out of the large pocket in his front hoodie and slid a photograph across the counter. "I want to know everything you know about All Might." The photo caused a twinge of pain to go through his chest. It was one of Izuku's favorite photos. One taken after he saved a school full of children from a runaway villain. What All Might obviously didn't know was that Izuku was one of those kids. It was one of those times when he had been locked in a closet and he hadn't learned how to lockpick yet. All Might had stormed through the school, doing everything to make sure as many people were out as possible. Obviously, he didn't save Izuku personally. After all, who would predict that there was a child in a closet? But when he flew through the halls, the door to the closet was ripped off its hinges. Even if it wasn't indirectly, All Might was the first person to save Izuku from the people in that school. It's what made him realize that it took All Might to save him, the number one hero. And it was going to be impossible to wait for All Might to save him every time anything happened. So he had to make sure he could save himself. "I'm sorry, sir. For security reasons, I only give analysis about into those who are physically in front of me. Even if you are a member of his agency, I can't give you any information about All Might unless he is here physically to give me his consent to share what I know." Yeah, there was no way this guy was part of All Might's agency. He is well known for basically being a one-man agency. Izuku can only imagine the man probably has zero sleep. But he supposed, now that he knew about what's actually behind the buff facade, that made a lot more sense. All Might looked like he could do anything when he was in front of public, but in private, and his form was deflated, it was clear he couldn't take care of himself. Izuku may have been angry when the man told him he couldn't be a hero, but Izuku thinks he understands a little bit now. His internet friend was right, in a way. It wasn't possible for Izuku to be a hero like All Might. He didn't think anyone could be a hero like All Might. And soon, even All Might was not going to be able to be a hero like All Might. His health was going to fail sooner rather than later. "If you like, I can talk to you about your own quirk." Izuku looked down at Shigaraki's hands. When Izuku told him he couldn't tell him anything about All Might, Shigaraki had, consciously or unconsciously, put more weight on his hands and leaned forward, probably in an attempt to intimidate him. Izuku may have been short for his age, but even he was a little bit taller than a full-grown man sitting in front of him. It was hard for him to be intimidated by someone shorter than him. He should probably keep that in mind for when he patrolled. It wasn't likely that anyone would take him seriously about his height. He could use that to his advantage. But anyway, when Shigaraki leaned forward, Izuku noticed his pinky fingers were slightly raised. "What could you possibly tell me what I don't already know?" said the man that was literally just asking Izuku to provide him information about someone who is constantly in the media. "I can tell you that you have a 5-point activation quirk, which obviously you already know. But I know that's what it is based on how you're holding your hands. Your pinky fingers are slightly raised. This is something that anyone with that quirk will learn as a child in order to prevent the quirk from activating accidentally. Most 5-point activation quirks can't be shut off. So, this action often becomes second nature and they don't even know they're doing it." Shigaraki sat more firmly in the chair, tucking his hands back into his pocket. "By the way, if you wear artist gloves, you will be able to hold anything more firmly without activating your quirk. People with 5-point activation quirks are often seen as more clumsy because they can't hold objects as firmly with only 4 fingers. Artist gloves take care of that. I would say your quirk has something to do with drying or dehydration when you touched. It must be so strong that the affects not only the object you touch, but you as well. It almost looks like you have eczema, but a body-wide condition is extremely rare. It's more likely to be in patches than evenly distributed. If you use a heavy-duty moisturizer meant for those with eczema, you can get some relief from the constant low-level burn you're probably feeling from the broken skin constantly being stretched out. Now, I know you paid for a detailed analysis, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get it written up. Would you like a coffee or smoothie while you wait?" Shigaraki, red-faced and form rigid, abruptly stood from the chair and stormed out the door. He shoulder-checked a man in a long brown trench coat on his way out. "Oops, sorry," the man said to Shigaraki, who ignored him as he walked away. "That was rude," Izuku heard the man mutter to himself. He shut the door and walked up to Izuku. "Hello," he said, removing the black hat he was wearing. "My name is Detective Tsukauchi Namasa from the Misutafu Police Department. Are you you are the analyst, I assume?" he said, giggling to himself while looking at Izuku's name tag. Shortly after starting to give analysis, Jiro had jokingly made Izuku a new name badge that read "The Analysis," after being asked one too many times if she was who people needed to talk to. Izuku, who had felt a little bit cocky at the time, had put it on and never took it off again. He wasn't sure if the regular customers actually remembered his real name anymore. "Ah, yes, that's me," Izuku said, giggling to himself, remembering the memory. "How can I help you? If you have some time, I'd like you to take a look at a surveillance video." Izuku felt slightly worried. Everyone believed he had a quirk. If he used his quirk, in the presence of a police officer, he could possibly be arrested for illegal quirk usage. And once it was found out he didn't have a quirk, he could possibly lose everything. He won't be able to hide it. He was also slightly worried that he would be arrested anyways, because he was providing a service using a quirk. But then he realized nowhere in the advertising did they mention anything about using a quirk. It was something that everyone just assumed on their own, so he'd done nothing wrong. Sure, I have time. My last appointment got cut a little short. Thank you. Oh, and don't worry about any quirk use. I'll be sure to document that I gave you permission to use the full scope of it. I know many mental quirks simply can't be shut off, so I can't blame you for using it in your daily life. Well, that's nice to hear. Thank you, Izuku said. The detective took out his phone and pulled up a video. Last Thursday, the bank down the road was robbed, right before they closed. We are having a hard time finding the person responsible. Izuku watched the video, seeing a shorter woman with brown hair in a pixie cut, and wearing a sports bra and spandex athletic shorts popped into existence with a flash. She took a knife out of her shorts and threatened the loan teller. The teller took everything whatever currency they had in their drawer and put it on the counter. The woman pulled a folded reusable shopping bag from the back pocket of her shorts and stuffed the money into it. Then, without warning, she flashed out of existence, startling the teller that was still putting the money on the counter. Then the video ended. Can I watch it again? Izuku asked. Sure, Tsukauchi said. Take all the time you need. The second time around, Izuku paid attention to the surroundings. He noticed that there were a few pixels that flashed during the entrance and exit of the robber. He also noticed the knife she was using didn't reflect like steel. Lastly, he noticed how the robber only grabbed the cash, tossed it into the air a little, then put it into her bag. He had a good idea what was happening. Izuku was mildly confused. The police department must really be short-funded if they couldn't hire a professional analysis. Anyone could see what this criminal's quirk was. The person you're looking for is a quirk that lets them travel through electricity. What? How'd you come up with that? Tsukauchi asked, taking the video back and playing it again. When she pops in, a few pixels in the corner of the video glitch. That is the sign of her coming and going. I noticed she was there for over 5 minutes. But there is a police station only 2 storefronts down. If the alarm had been triggered, they should have been there within seconds. The silent alarm was triggered, but when we investigated the records, the siren wasn't sent to the station until after the woman already left, even though the button was pushed as soon as the teller saw the knife. A side effect of her quirk is probably that it prevents electronics within a certain radius around her from transmitting signals. Her own body probably emits an electrical signal that forces a charge in the frequency of the electronics currently around her, so she can integrate herself in with them. In turn, this stops them from being able to transmit signals outside of in a certain area around her. But once she's gone, the frequency went back to normal and the alarm was sent. Well, that would explain that. Next thing I noticed is that she can obviously take things with her when she travels, but not metal. My theory is that the electrons emitted by metals interfere with the electrical signal produced by her body. She also has a weight limit. What is your reason for that? She didn't take any coins, only bills. The knife she used is cosmetic, not steel. See how it doesn't reflect the lights? Izuku pointed to the knife in the video. And although it has been getting warmer lately, she is wearing what you would expect for a runner in the middle of summer. In other words, it'd be far too cold to wear under normal circumstances. She tossed each bundle of bills into the air before putting it in her bag, as if she's weighing it. The only conclusion is that she was cutting down on the weight she was wearing so that she could carry more money back with her. Detective Tsukauchi looked astonished. Wow, thank you. I will be back if I have any follow-up questions. But you have been extremely helpful. Thank you. He ran out the door quickly. Izuku stood at the counter dumbfounded. He hoped that was not going to be a regular thing. Having been ran out on 2 times in one day was enough. Thank you very much. Izuku shrugged and went to get ready for his next client. The day continued along like normal after that. Many clients left enthusiastic about what they had learned, while others were thoughtful. But all of them were thankful. Izuku was just thankful no one ran out on him again. At the end of the night, Izuku showed Uraraka how to close up and tells her to be safe while heading home. He said goodbye to Boss and stepped out into the alley. He looked down at his shoes, then looked up at the roofs. He did need to break in and test his new shoes. And he needs to step up his parkour practice. There was no better time than now. He eyed the escape ladder. He jumped up and grabbed the last rung, then used his upper body strength to pull him up onto the ladder. In no time flat, he was on the roof and running. The first jump was a little anxiety-inducing, but after that, his confidence soared through the air. He couldn't believe how much he loved the feeling. He would live on the roofs if he could get away with it. For the first time in his memory, he was smiling as he was heading home. In the back alley, Shigaraki ran to the mouth and looked inside. Shit! It was empty, but that should have been impossible. It was a dead end. There was nowhere for anyone to go. As soon as he saw the analysis leave the front of the cafe, he ran around the building to the back. He didn't have time to leave the alley, much less get any further than that. The kid has an analysis quirk. It's not like he could just up and disappear. Not unless he has more than one quirk. And that's the end of chapter 14. Chapter 15 will be up next. And I will read you the first little bit of chapter 15, just so you know what you're getting into. Chapter 15. Tamara walked into the bar he called his home. Kirigiri, a genetically engineered, glorified babysitter with a body covered in fog, stood behind the counter, wiping a glass with a pure white towel. And that, everyone, is the And I am hoping that my hope is that by the end of October I have something exciting to announce. But my goal is to at least by the end of December before Christmas, hopefully, have the announcement ready. But until then, my beautiful mythical creatures, peace out. Drink water and eat donuts. Bye!